失礼します。
失礼します。
Imagine standing at the edge of an Olympic ice rink, your heart hammering inside your chest, every single dream you've ever had sitting right there on the frozen surface in front of you. Now imagine the one person in the entire world you trust more than anyone else is standing beside you, and they've been crying all morning. Not from fear, from something deeper. Something that 7 years of sacrifice, injury, silence, and shared exhaustion had quietly built between two people who were never supposed to find each other in the first place. This is the story of Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara. And I promise you've never heard a love story told quite like this one. Because this one was written entirely on ice. Let's go back to May of 2019. Ryuichi Kihara was 36 days away from making one of the hardest decisions of his life. He had already competed at 2 Olympics, 2014 in Sochi, 2018 in Pyeongchang, both times with different partners, and both times he never even made it to the free skate. He had given everything to a sport that had given him very little in return, and now his most recent partnership had dissolved, and he was standing at a crossroads that most athletes dread more than any competition. The moment when you ask yourself whether it's over, whether you are done. And then a phone rang. The Japan Skating Federation asked him to attend a pair skating seminar in Nagoya. A simple enough request. But what nobody could have predicted, not Kihara, not the Federation, not anyone in that rink that day, was that walking through those doors at the same seminar was a 22-year-old girl named Riku Miura, small in stature, enormous in spirit, and guided by a Canadian coach named Bruno Marcotte, who had a very specific idea about what these two people could become together. Marcotte looked at Riku and saw fearlessness. He looked at Ryuichi and saw raw, untapped talent that had never once been in the right environment to bloom. He looked at both of them together and he said, "Try it." What happened next would redefine Japanese figure skating forever. 2 weeks. That's all it took. 2 weeks after that seminar in Nagoya, Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara packed their lives into suitcases and moved to Oakville, Ontario, Canada. A small city outside Toronto with cold winters and quiet skating rinks and absolutely none of the fanfare that their names would one day carry. Just ice, early mornings, and 2 strangers learning how to trust a person they barely knew. And here's the thing about pair skating that most people watching at home don't fully understand. It's not gymnastics, it's not dance, it's not even really like any other sport in the world. Because when you skate pairs, you are physically placing your life in another person's hands. Every throw jump, every overhead lift, every triple twist at full speed across Olympic ice, one mistimed movement, 1/2 second of hesitation, one moment of doubt, and someone gets hurt. Badly. The physics of pair skating demand something that goes far beyond athletic skill. They demand an almost irrational level of mutual trust. And you cannot fake it. The ice always reveals the truth. So imagine what it takes to build that trust with someone you met 2 weeks ago. Their first competitive debut came at the 2019 NHK Trophy. They finished 5th. By any standard, that would be a respectable showing for a brand new team. But anyone who knows figure skating knows that 5th place doesn't capture what happened on that ice. What the scores couldn't measure was the quiet electricity between them. The way Riku moved inside Ryuichi's arms like she had been there her entire life. The way he caught her with a steadiness that seemed impossible for someone who had never truly found his footing as a pair skater. Coaches in the audience noticed. Fans online started whispering. Something about this team felt different. And then the world shut down. March 2020. COVID-19. The pandemic arrived, and with it came an unexpected gift wrapped in the most brutal packaging imaginable. Riku and Ryuichi, already based in Canada, could not go home. For months, they were together constantly, training in near-empty rinks, isolated from family, isolated from Japan, just the two of them and their coach working through a year that the entire world was trying to survive. And in that strange, suspended silence, in those early morning sessions when the ice was freshly cut and nobody else was watching, something shifted between them. Something that no competition schedule or scoring panel could ever quantify. Ask any skater who has trained through a pandemic lockdown, and they will tell you, You learn who a person really is when there's nowhere to hide. And what Riku and Ryuichi found in each other during that time was not just a skating partner. It was something that fans across the world would spend the next several years trying to name. By the time the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics arrived, they had been partners for less than 3 years. And yet Japan sent them as one of the primary reasons to believe the team event could deliver a medal, the first time Japan had ever been competitive in pairs at an Olympic level. They delivered. Riku and Ryuichi skated a free program that put the arena on its feet, earning 9 of a possible 10 points for the Japanese team. Japan won silver, their first Olympic team medal. And the two of them stood on that podium in Beijing, wearing expressions that were equal parts joy and disbelief, like two people who still couldn't fully trust how far they'd come. But then came the pairs event. And here, right here, is where viewers watching that 2022 Olympics began to understand that this team carried something fragile and beautiful inside every performance. Riku doubled a jump attempt in the short program. The scoring dropped them to 8th. In the free skate, they climbed back to 5th. They finished 7th overall. For a team with their talent, 7th felt like it should have hurt more. Instead, they held each other's gaze for a long, quiet moment after the scores appeared, and something unspoken passed between them. Not defeat. More like a promise. We will come back here. And next time, we will not leave empty-handed. The 2022-23 season was unlike anything Japanese figure skating had witnessed in the pairs discipline. Riku and Ryuichi won the Grand Prix final. They won the Four Continents title. And in Saitama, Japan, in front of a home crowd that had waited generations to cheer for a world champion pair, they won the 2023 World Championship, the first ever world title for a Japanese pairs team. Riku Miura, barely 21 years old, was lifted in Ryuichi's arms at the exact moment the scores were announced, and the look on both of their faces wasn't the pumped fist explosion of athletes who expected to win. It was the trembling, wide-eyed, tear-soaked expression of people who still couldn't believe they were allowed to have this. Social media absolutely erupted. Clips of them went viral in countries that rarely paid attention to figure skating. International fans who had never watched a pairs competition in their lives found themselves emotionally wrecked by a Japanese team they discovered 3 minutes ago. Comments flooded in from Brazil, from France, from South Korea, from the United States, all saying some version of the same thing. I don't know why, but I'm crying. Who are these two? And the answer, the real answer, was something they couldn't quite articulate but felt immediately. Riku and Ryuichi moved on ice like two people who were holding something precious together and were terrified, equally, of being the one who let it fall. Fans even started calling them by a shared name, RikuRyu. One name, one unit. Like the sport itself had recognized they were no longer two separate athletes. But then something happened that nobody saw coming. The 2023-24 season began, and almost immediately, Ryuichi started pulling out of events. At first, people assumed it was minor. A strain. A rest. The usual recalibration that elite athletes sometimes need. But then the withdrawals continued. Grand Prix series gone. Japanese nationals gone. And then the diagnosis came out. Lumbar spondylosis. A degenerative condition of the vertebrae in his lower back. The kind of injury that doesn't just hurt, it threatens everything. Every throw, every lift, every jump requires explosive spinal stability. What Ryuichi was dealing with was a direct attack on the very foundation of what pair skating demands of his body. And Riku waited. She could have panicked. She could have lobbied for a replacement partner or used the downtime to redirect her energy towards something else. Instead, she waited. She trained. She kept her own body in peak condition while watching her partner fight through something that was quietly breaking him. In interviews from that period, you can see it in her face, the careful way she chooses her words, the way she talks about Ryuichi with a protectiveness that goes far beyond professional respect. I knew the feeling of wanting to rush back, she said. But me and the coach told him not to rush. We had to hold him back and help him understand. She had been injured herself the previous season. She understood precisely what it felt like to watch your sport fly past you while your body refused to cooperate. And so she became his anchor, his patience. the thing that kept him from self-destructing during the darkest stretch of his career. They rushed back just in time for the 2024 Four Continents and Worlds. Silver at both. Strong enough to remind the world they were still here. But Ryuichi himself would later admit they were a shadow of the team that had swept everything the year before. The weight of being world champions, combined with the physical and emotional toll of that injury season, had changed something in both of them. Made them quieter, more careful, more aware of how quickly everything could disappear. And that awareness is what made the 2024-25 season so extraordinary to witness. For the first time in their entire partnership, Riku and Ryuichi completed a full season without withdrawing from a single event. Not one. They finished second or better in all 8 competitions they entered, including the 2025 World Championship in Boston, which they won for a second time. At the World Team Trophy shortly after, they set personal bests in both programs. Standing at the boards after that performance, Kihara looked at his coach and said something that captured everything about who they had become. "We've let go of the first title. It's behind us now. We're calm and collected. We're challengers again." The arena went quiet for just a moment before the applause started, because those of us who had followed their journey understood exactly what he meant. They had burned down everything that was holding them back, the pressure, the expectation, the fear of being the ones everyone else was aiming at, and rebuilt themselves as something leaner, sharper, and infinitely more dangerous heading into the 2026 Olympics. Milano Cortina, February 2026. They arrived as world champions and clear gold medal favorites. And for a moment in the team event, it looked like destiny was cooperating. They posted personal best scores in both the short program and free skate, helping Japan to silver again. The confidence in their eyes was unmistakable. Ryuichi's lifts were commanding. Riku's throws were landing with the precision of someone who had stopped skating to impress and started skating to express. They looked like a team that had nothing left to prove and every intention of proving it anyway. And then the pair's short program happened. Midway through their program, Ryuichi misjudged the dismount of a lasso lift, an overhead lift that had never given them trouble at this level. The scoring dropped. When the marks appeared, they were fifth. Fifth place heading into the free skate at the Olympics, where they were supposed to win gold. And in that moment, watching Ryuichi leave the ice with the expression of someone who couldn't believe what had just happened, something remarkable unfolded that the cameras caught and the world could not stop talking about. Riku held herself together. Ryuichi, by his own admission, had been crying since that morning. His coach had to look him in the eye and repeat it twice just to get through to him. "It's not over." Ryuichi himself would later say, "I was in despair. I couldn't stop crying, even at practice this morning. I didn't know how I was going to get myself up again." And in the silence of that team room, in the hours between a short program that had nearly destroyed them and a free skate that would define their legacy, it was Riku who became the one carrying both of them. "Normally," he said, voice breaking, "I'm the stronger one. This time, Riku really supported me." She had reversed the roles. Quietly, without announcement, she had absorbed his devastation and converted it into fuel. Ryuichi's disappointment was really strong, she explained afterward. So instead, I shifted into the role of supporting him. I kept thinking, if we skate without mistakes, we still have a chance. What happened next changed everything. When Riku and Ryuichi took the ice for the free skate in Milan, skating to music from Gladiator, a choice that, in hindsight, feels like the universe had been planning this moment all along. They were a team with nothing left to lose and everything left to give. They opened with a massive triple twist. Then a side-by-side triple-toe loop combination that drew gasps from the crowd. And then came the lift, the very same Group 5 lasso that had failed them in the short program. And they landed it. Perfectly. Decisively. Like they were answering a question that had haunted them for 24 hours. The program built in power with every passing element. The crowd felt it before the scores came up. There is a specific kind of electricity that fills an arena when an audience realizes they are watching something they will remember for the rest of their lives, and the Milano ice skating arena was vibrating with it. When Riku and Ryuichi collapsed into each other at the final pose, genuinely collapsed, bodies folding together in a way that looked less like choreography and more like two people finally exhaling after years of holding their breath. The arena erupted in a standing ovation. Their free skate score, 158.13, a world record. Their combined total of 231.24 catapulted them over 4 teams into first place. Japan's first ever Olympic gold medal in pairs figure skating. And as that score flashed across the screen at the kiss and cry, Ryuichi's face crumbled completely, not in sadness, not in relief, but in the kind of joy that is only available to people who have genuinely suffered for something. He cried on the ice. He cried when he saw the score. He cried during the medal ceremony. And every single person watching cried with him, because by then we all understood. This wasn't just a gold medal. This was the ending to a story that had been building since a phone call in 2019, through a pandemic lockdown in Canada, through injuries and withdrawals and early mornings on empty ice, through the weight of world championship titles and the terror of almost losing it all in a single botched lift. 3 months later, they retired. In a joint statement posted to both their social media accounts, under the name RikuRyu, as always, together, they wrote, "We truly feel that we gave it our all and have no regrets. We are proud of everything we went through and feel we gained so much along the way." At their retirement press conference in Tokyo, Kihara began crying during his opening remarks. He said that once the Olympics ended, he and Riku were overcome with the feeling that they had nothing more to give. That it was over, that it was time. And sitting beside him, Riku Miura, 24 years old, 3 Olympic medals, 2 world championship titles, and a name permanently etched into Japanese sports history, looked at the cameras with the quiet certainty of someone who has already lived through the hardest thing they will ever face, and survived it. Their next chapter, professional skating and eventually their own academy. To teach the next generation everything they know about trust, sacrifice, and what it means to place yourself in another person's hands at 70 kilometers per hour and simply believe. Here's what I keep thinking about, long after the credits roll on their story. There are thousands of elite athletes in the world. There are hundreds of Olympic gold medalists. But there are very, very few partnerships in the history of sport that make the entire world stop and feel something they can't quite name. Riku and Ryuichi were that rare thing. They were proof that the deepest kind of strength isn't the kind you build alone. It's the kind you discover only when you're willing to trust someone else with the most fragile parts of yourself, on the ice, off it, in the silence between programs, and in the grief of a short program that nearly ended everything. The arena in Milan went quiet for just a moment when they finished their free skate. Not because the crowd didn't know what they'd witnessed, but because they did. And sometimes, when something is truly beautiful, the only honest response is silence before the roar. For 7 years, they carried something together that nobody could fully explain. Call it partnership. Call it trust. Call it the thing that makes 2 strangers from Japan pack their lives into suitcases and move to Canada because a Canadian coach with a vision said, "Try it." Whatever you call it, the world watched it unfold on a frozen surface in Milan, and the world wept. RikuRyu. One name, one story, forever.